Alright, so I want to make a video updating everyone on the new cases as usual, as well as get into some other big important things from the past day. So, Canada is up to 24,365 cases with 717 dead. Yeah, the amount of people dying is definitely not good. In Alberta, we had 82 cases yesterday, which is again up for 3 days in a row now, I think. But still below that 100 mark that we've seen for about 4 or 5 days in a row there about a week ago ish, a little over a week ago. Alberta is also up to 1,651 cases, with 823 recovered, and then with 77,316 tests. So that is a very large percent of people that have been tested. Again, Calgary is the main area you got to worry about. About 2/3 of the cases are in Calgary. And like I want to keep reiterating, I don't think that this is as big of an issue as it's been played out to be. It's definitely not, it's just a flu kind of, it's not that mentality. I don't believe that. But like I keep mentioning, I think we're gonna regret shutting things down to the point that we did. I think when we quote unquote turn the economy back on, whenever we do, it's not going to turn back on to the extent that it was at, and it wasn't even very good to begin with. It's not like we had some roaring, massive bull market. We didn't have a very good economy in Canada in the first place. So I think we're really going to regret this. And I think that the point here is that I think the government has realized, at least the federal government has realized that this isn't quite as bad as what it's made out to be. It's definitely still not something we should completely ignore, but they're just trying to use it as a chance to grab as much power as they possibly can in every way possible, basically. But anyway, let's talk about some other stuff here. This is from Stefan Molyneux, and this is something that was going on in China recently. Basically, this person says black people are discriminated in China now and treated as a virus. Video showing a black man with his baby is forced locked inside his home by government officials and asked if he contracted with contacted with other African recently, but his neighbors are free to move. Again, and then Stefan Molyneux says, the communist woke crew will say nothing. They don't care about actual racism. They only care about power. And that's so true. And this is something that bothers me so much with the left is that they claim to care about all these issues, but that yet they clearly don't care. Because if you actually care, you wouldn't only care when it's, specific instances of it. You wouldn't only care about racism when it's whites doing it. You wouldn't only care about sexism when it only, negatively affects women. You wouldn't only care about discrimination when it only affects, blacks, or I mean not in this case, or Muslims. Just the sheer amount of contradictions between the left is absolutely astounding. And whenever anyone brings this up, all you have to do is just point this kind of stuff out. You know, when it comes to the left claiming to care about these issues, you don't even need to take them seriously. You don't need to take them seriously at all, because until they start caring about the sexism and racism and patriarchalness of Islam, until they start caring about this kind of stuff, they have zero credibility whatsoever. Until they start caring about that stuff, they have literally zero credibility. And again, that's the thing about the left, is that they don't actually care about racism. They only care about it when it's whites that are perpetrating it. And why they care about it when it's whites perpetrating it is that whites are the only group of people, specifically white men, which is why they hate white men so much, that are the most anti-left. You look at the numbers. If only white people, or specifically white men, voted in the states, it would be a Republican landslide. If whites didn't vote, it would be a Democrat landslide. So it's a very simple concept. I don't understand why people want to confuse it. It's simply the left want to do what's in their own best interest. You don't need to ascribe terrible um, terrible motives. It's just they only care about their own best interest. And if we could just be honest about that, it would be a lot easier to have this political conversation. But for whatever reason, people don't want to do that. But anyway, I needed to bring that up because it was an important thing. This is from Matt Strauss. And he goes on to say, just for perspective, I worked in a 21-bed ICU. We have 4 patients currently, absolutely unprecedented. This means we are putting people out of work and canceling outpatient healthcare for no good reason. We need to start loosening the lockdown. Now, again, this is something I've been saying for over a week now, and the evidence is starting to look more and more like I've been right about it. And I didn't start talking about it until I was pretty sure I was right about it anyway. Off the start, I kind of had that view, but I was skeptical. Now I'm pretty sure, not 100%, but pretty sure. I could be wrong in the long run, but I doubt it. And most areas is this is what I've seen. The problem is that we're flooded constantly with the examples of the New Yorks of the world, because the news isn't going to have a breaking news. Local hospital is way the amount of people in the hospital is much lower than average. Like that's never going to be a breaking news story. But local hospital has to turn people away because they're so busy. Now, that's a breaking news story. So that's gonna be a national news story. And a local hospital that doesn't is much less people than average, that might not even be a local news story. So that's something I wanted to bring up. And I think a good way of doing it is, if you're not going to completely open things up, at least open up areas that haven't been as well hit, and open up areas to differing degrees. It doesn't mean you have to say, set everyone free and be like, hey, do what you please. We should keep old folks homes locked down, keep them in quarantine because they're the most at risk. We should strongly encourage people over 60 to stay home, or at the very least minimize any contact with the public. We should tell people that are come in contact with large numbers of people to wear masks, to wash their hands often, and all that kind of stuff. And the big thing too is that we should encourage people to boost their immune system, because if you have a strong immune system, you're going to fight it off no problem. So, and that's the one thing that it really surprises me. I mean, it doesn't surprise me because the government system is designed to, and they only make money when people get sick, not when they don't get sick. So of course they're going to try and implement policies that keep people sick, again, which is another argument for another day. But again, it's something that I think we should be doing, and again, it's something that I think we should all be able to agree on. But again, like I said, the government wants to keep things the way they are because they want to grab power. They want to grab power. They want to experiment with how much, tyranny, authoritarianism they can get away with. And the thing about this, people always scoff when you bring that up. Well, it never happens overnight. It rarely happens overnight. It always happens bit by bit by bit. It's how the old saying goes. If you boil up, I heard the comparison. If you boil a pot of water, throw a frog in it, the frog's instincts, it's so fast, it'll jump out of the water fast enough that it won't get burnt really bad. If you put a frog in a lukewarm pot of water and you slowly bring it up, let the water boil over 10-15 minutes, you're going to get the frog no problem. And this is how the government does it. They do it slowly but surely. I mean, look at China. They literally have 100 200-year plans of how they're going to become the most powerful country in the world. And that's how it's done. People seem to they think that unless you're calling for full on concentration camps and police door to, and police already are going door to door in some places, but the most authoritarian tyrannical thing you can possibly think of, then that must mean that they don't want any of it. No, that doesn't make any sense. They do it slowly but surely. Look at free speech, look at gun control. They never say we going from like a constitutional carry state in the states to an outright gun ban. It's always, oh, just ban this one little thing, just ban that one little thing, just ban this, just ban that, and eventually it's all gone. And that's how they do it. This is from Kean Bexty. He goes on to say, "Welcome to Alberta, where the federal government is simply a optional nuisance." And again, the Alberta has been the best state, or not the best state, the best province of the major provinces at reducing the virus spread. You compare it to Ontario and Quebec, it's been much, much better. The curve has been pretty flattened in Alberta. The average has been pretty steady for over a week now, and you can't help but notice the coincidence that Alberta is the most conservative, maybe Saskatchewan, they're probably about even, but the most conservative province. They believe, I mean, and one of the fundamental beliefs of conservatism is that you plan for the future. one of the most fundamental differences between the average leftist and the average right-wing person is that people on the left tend to not think about, it doesn't even cross their minds, is planning for the future. It's all the here and now, which is why they still seem to think that free healthcare and massive welfare states work. They work in the short run, just not in the long run, which is why people on the right, seem to think that they don't. So again, this is something I wanted to bring up, and again, the Trudeau government deserves a ton of criticism when it comes to this kind of stuff. If you're someone who's a Trudeau supporter, um, and you can't admit that he's wrong on, I mean, if you want to still support him, go ahead. But if you can't admit he's wrong on this kind of stuff, we have serious issues, because they've flip flopped most major issues, the masks, the closing the, I mean, they kind of closed the borders, they kind of didn't. All this kind of stuff that they've completely flip flopped on. They've been wrong about most things. They're touting the communist Chinese talking points, like all this kind of stuff. Like, again, it's just very, very astounding. The last story here is City of Vancouver at risk of bankruptcy, says mayor. And they go on to say the City of Vancouver is at risk of going bankrupt, says the mayor, citing a recent poll showing more than half the property owners are not expected to pay full property taxes this year as the virus takes hold. Mayor Kennedy Stewart said his earlier claim the city would lose up to 189 million in revenue, and as much as and falls short 325 million. The city's already laid off 1,500 people. So they normally generate about 874 million from, or sorry, in revenue, and property taxes about 325 million of that. So that's a lot of money. And I mean, first of all, I don't believe in the concept in the first place, but if we're going to have this kind of thing, and this is just more the reason why we have to figure out a plan to get people back to work. The government has more than enough time. They've had more than enough time to come up with a plan to say, hey, within the next month, preferably earlier, but within the next month, we're sending most people, preferably almost everybody, back to work. How are we going to do it so we can minimize risk? And how you're going to do that, I mean, basically, is still encourage social distancing while at work. Encourage very people to be more sanitary. Masks, again, masks are the biggest one. We should be stockpiling masks as a country, like as many as we can possibly get our hands on. And for some reason we're not. And to top it all off, we gave a lot of it to China for some stupid reason. Like, again, that makes absolutely no sense. But um, like I said, we need to reopen the economy, but the problem is a lot of people are getting their, I mean, not, I mean, a lot of people, they're still losing money, but they're getting paid, $1,000, or sorry, $2,000 a month to to sit at home basically. And a lot of people like that. So my guess is that, I mean, I'd like to see a public poll. I'd really like to see a public poll on, do people want to reopen the economy? I would be interested to see. I think in Alberta it would be a yes, but I think the more lefty areas it would be a no. But again, that's just my guess. Um, but anyway, I'm going to leave the video there. If you liked it, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. I do have my PayPal and email linked in the description. I appreciate any donations. But at the very least, just hit that like and subscribe if you haven't already. And like I always mention too, check out my BitChute channel, because YouTube's going to ban me at some point. So like I said, I'll leave it there.